How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio, March 1, 2018, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. A lot to get into here today, and we're going to kick it off with everybody's favorite topic. Jon Jones had his latest day in court, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, he had his hearing before the California State Athletic Commission yesterday morning.
Figure speech. But anyway, What a day he had.
Did you see it?
I read all about it. I didn't actually see it.
I saw
Observer Live.
I saw it. It was amazing. I was in. I don't know what to say. It was like I'm watching this, going like, they have had since when did this come out? This news come out August. So they had since August to come up with a defense, and his defense is, I would never cheat. That's it. I would never cheat. And it's like a guy who's, his like whole career, granted, he doesn't have, I can't say that he has a history of cheating in fights. I can't say that. But he's got, a track record of, between the DUIs and just everything, the drug test failures, just the total screwing up in so many different ways. And his it's like they tested 15 supplements, and here's just it's like the other day when we were talking about this, it was just like, I just didn't want to hear about a tainted supplement that he never declared. And it's like, so anyway, he had 15 supplements and then 2 other things tested, which all came back. Nothing came back with any traces of Turinabol, which is the steroid that he failed for. And he didn't declare most of them. He declared some of them, but he didn't declare most of them. And it's like the other time where he tested positive for something that he never declared. And it's like, when you've already been through this, how do you still not declare everything that you're taking? I mean, it's not a minor thing. I mean, it's just like the whole thing. And then the whole situation of, he was supposed to go to, or he was supposed to take, classes, and he never took the classes, or the seminar thing with USADA, and he didn't do it, and his management did it and signed his name, and just the whole thing of just, there was no defense. And then at the end, it's like Andy Foster's like, well, I believe him, but we still have to punish him. So they weren't going to punish him as far as time frame. They weren't going to punish him much, because they punished Alexander Shlemenko a couple years ago with a 3-year suspension, and then they took it to Superior Court in California, who pretty much ruled that they couldn't suspend a guy that long. Well, so what they were essentially going to do was fine him, which they did, $205,000, and they revoked his license, which means that he can't apply for another license. There's some dispute over when. Yeah,
we don't even know what that even means. Like, is it a year from now? Is it a year from when he?
Yeah, I don't know.
No one knows. You'd think we'd get that information. Is this that hard?
Well, the thing is that essentially it doesn't really matter, because I cannot imagine, like the longest it would be is a year from now. But the reason that they revoked the license or suspended him, if they had given him, say, a 2-year suspension, after the 2 years he would come back. But by revoking the license, even though it's only 1 year, probably from now, if he's not rubber stamped like coming back, he has to go through a hearing to come back. They have to approve him, and they basically said that they want proof of of changes that he's made in his life, and what he's done in earning his license back. Now, of course, he's going to get his license back at that time, but USADA is going to deliver the big suspension. I mean, realistically, like, I don't. They couldn't suspend him for less than 2 years, because this number one, it's a second offense, and if you look at like a lot of the guys, including Tom Lawler, it's like Tom Lawler had essentially the same thing, in the sense that he tested positive for something, and his was Ostarine, which is a lot more mild than Tyranobol, and a lot more common and things like that. But he had no explanation other than saying that he didn't do it, and he got a 2-year suspension for a first offense. This is a second offense. So I don't know how they can justify anything less than, I mean, theoretically 4 years, but I mean, even if it's 3 years, I think that people would go, okay, 3 years is okay. But there's also extenuating circumstances between the lying on the application, the forging of the signature, and things like that. Where, I mean, it could be as long as 6 years because 4 years for the second offense, because that is what the guidelines say is 4 years for a second offense, and 2 years for extenuating circumstances. So it's going to be a long, long time, and I think California knew that. So, by revoking the license, he really can't. I mean, when that suspension is done, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, or longer, then it's still not automatic that he can come back, because aside from having to pass the USADA tests for all these years while he's suspended, he also has to show when he comes back, and this in all these years, that he has made changes, that he has to earn his license back, which he probably would, but it's not like it's a given that he can just come in, whereas if he was suspended, when the suspension's up, he's he's eligible to fight. So that was kind of the mentality behind the whole thing. But just there was just no explanation, no defense. He just said that, I'm a lot of things. I'm wild. I'm, whatever, immature, I can be, a lot of different things, but I'm not a cheater. And I think, he comes across very well in certain ways, except if we haven't been through this thing with him for year after year after year. It's just one time after another where you get that humble Jon Jones who comes across as a really nice guy in front of everybody, and then he, screws up the next time. I think the thing that bothered me the most about a lot of this isn't Jon Jones, but I mean, I guess it's the defense. Okay, so the key to this defense is that he didn't knowingly take this drug that was in his system the day before the fight with Cormier, because 3 weeks earlier he was tested, and he tested clean, and then on October the 13th. Now keep in mind, his test was July the 28th of last year. He took another test on October the 13th, and he was clean. Okay, this is like months later, and they're using that October test being clean as proof that he wasn't taking anything. It's months later. How is that proof of anything? I mean, that whole explanation, and the fact that it was clean 3 weeks earlier, and the whole thing is like, well, number one, the fact that one test is clean and one test isn't, that doesn't mean that you're clean, because it's not, they can't detect everything all the time. There's so much stuff that slips through. The other thing is in theory, Tyranobol is only going to be detected for 5 to 8 days. Now, they claim they can detect it for months, but you hear that, you don't know if it's true or not. But the point is, and then the other argument was that, well, why would he take it, right before the fight? It's like, Brian, why would you take steroids right before the fight?
To win?
I mean, like, if you're a guy, if you're not like some vain guy who needs steroids all the time for your own self-esteem or whatever reason, okay? If you're like that, and you're a fighter, and you're just wanting to win a fight, you would probably only take steroids right around the time of the fight.
Well, I mean, you could argue that you want to take in your training. I mean, if you ask me, like, if I'm fighting, I mean, the answer is you would take it during training camp and then get off because you're going to be tested the day of the fight. That's what they used to do.
Yeah.
Like, only an idiot would take your steroids right before the fight.
Okay,
but I mean, if you weren't tested, then that would be a fine time to take them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, he did know he was being tested. So, but did he believe, who's to say that he didn't have a really good program that he thought could beat the tests, and it didn't?
Basically, what's happening here is they've got nothing and they're grasping for straws. I think that's just the bottom line here.
No. I mean, that's not what bothers me. It's not them saying it. I mean, of course, if they say it, that's fine. I don't, you have to have a defense. But people were believing it. I mean, I'm reading from these people, and even Andy Foster was just like, well, I believe him because why would he take steroids the week of the fight?
Andy Foster came off like an idiot.
I mean, it's like, I like Andy Foster. I don't want to say that. But I just felt that, like, I wouldn't go. I mean, and even Nowitzki and these guys are just going like, well, the fact that he passed 3 weeks earlier and the fact that his October test came back clean means that he probably knowingly didn't take steroids, and it's like that doesn't indicate anything to me other than I mean, it doesn't indicate knowingly. I mean, it may indicate that he's an idiot, in the sense that, but my gut is that, I don't know how that got in the system, because it's not like that is something that gets in anyone's system by accident. It wasn't in any of his supplements. It's not like it's in the water. It's a drug that's almost, I don't want to say impossible to get, but it's very expensive to get, and it's not around much. I mean, it hasn't been made in many places, I think legally, in a long, long time. I mean, this was basically the drug that the East Germans took in the 70s and 80s, I believe, when they were winning all the medals, which we talked about before. And, they could beat the drug test with it. And now the drug tests are better and you can't beat it with it. And but I mean, it's not like it's something like that you could get in your system by accident. But I don't know. I mean, but the idea that whatever it is that how do you say because he tested positive the day before the fight? Yeah, of course, if you're smart, but it's like this guy doesn't do a lot of stuff that's smart. I mean, that's one of the reasons he keeps getting in trouble, is because, he's got a track record of not doing smart things. So I don't know. He's not going to be fighting for a long time. Super talented fighter. You want to believe, but you can't. You want to believe he's a changed guy. You want to believe he's learned. Then these things happen every time. And yeah, I mean, I just watched that hearing, and I was just baffled on so many things. I was baffled at people believing him, because he doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt. I mean, if he deserved the benefit of the doubt, and he had no track record, could you? And they didn't offer a defense like, well, he tested positive he didn't test positive in October, months later. If they didn't, try to insult my intelligence with that, I could go, well, maybe. But there's just too many red flags on this one, and too many attempts at excuses that don't hold water. And we're not going to, if USADA suspends him for less than 2 years, that would be extremely unfair. I know that he's a big-time moneymaker, but I don't think that there's an excuse they can give to suspend him for less than 2 years.
Yeah, but what money does USADA make off him fighting?
In theory, nothing, right?
Yeah, so if the commission were doing something of this nature, then that would be one thing, but USADA gains nothing. I mean, if he's suspended for 2 years, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, it makes no difference to their pocketbook, so they should just do what's right. Yes,
I agree, and they probably will. But I can't see right in this situation being less than 3 years.
I can't see right being less than 4 years. If the rules say 4 years for the second offense, it should be 4 years. Otherwise, what's the point of having these rules?
Well, the rules are they're not hard and fast. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's automatic. It's like those are guidelines. Of course, the thing is that, like, what has he done? I mean, what evidence has he shown? What has he done to prove that? Or
what extenuating circumstances in the opposite direction have there been to give him 3 years instead of 4?
There's none. That's the problem. There's none. There's really no excuse you can give to give him less than 4, because it is a second offense, and he couldn't prove where that he got it accidentally, and just his word. It's just not good enough. It's the first time maybe it is, but the third time, fourth time, how many times I couldn't even tell you. It's just not good enough. I think it really does have to be 4 years. It will be probably in the next month or so that we'll get that. But I mean, the other thing too is that, like, how are all these people? Because you were hearing this all year, whether it was Dana White or Nowitzki or Malky Kawa, his agent, and they're going like, he'll be able to fight this year. He'll when the evidence all comes out, it's like, what evidence are we talking about? I mean, the evidence is that he passed a drug test on October the 13th. Months later, that's the evidence? It's like, what's that evidence of? I mean, I'm just, what are all these people talking about? I mean, I was expecting, as everyone was, that they were going to find a tainted supplement, and then we'd have to do the same thing that we did last time and go, well, was it declared, or is this something gimmicked? You know what I mean? Is this something we should believe? And then do we know? And all that. But they didn't even have that. I mean, they had no defense. They had no real defense. And it's like, what were all these people talking about? Like, oh, when the defense comes and he gets his day in court, he's going to, it's going to prove, that their proof was that frickin' October test. That's ridiculous. Anyway, so that's the story on Jon Jones.
Well, Chris Cyborg is fighting this weekend, UFC 222.
Against Yana Kunitskaya.
Yeah, that's the main event.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, there's, Frankie Edgar and Brian Ortega. I'm very interested in that fight. Business-wise, I'll tell you what, after last week's show where I was so sure they were going to do a record low and they didn't, I don't know. I mean, Cyborg did much better than anyone expected the last time she fought. But it was Holly Holm, and I really do believe Holly Holm was a huge part of that one. Some people even think Khabib Nurmagomedov was part of it. So, I mean, I don't expect it to be anything close because, again, nobody knows Yana Kunitskaya, nor should they. It's a Cyborg fight. It's probably going to be, one-sided. It's probably, it may not last long, but even if it does, it's probably going to be very one-sided. I don't see anything that's going to, I mean, this would be, if she lost, that would be one of the biggest upsets in history. Ortega and Frankie Edgar is really an interesting fight because Ortega always looks like he's about to lose, and then he pulls a submission out, in fights that he loses every single time. He always gets a submission. Now, Frankie Edgar is a big step up from the guys he's been submitting, but, he did it with, was it Cub Swanson last time? I mean, in a fight that, so it's like, he just keeps winning.
Cub Swanson.
Yeah, the guy just keeps winning. And the winner of this fight will get Max Holloway, who was originally scheduled to face Frankie Edgar on this card. So that's the number 2 fight on the show. Let me just get the rest of the lineup. I got it right here.
Ortega's never lost, although he did have one drug test failure, so it was a no contest. But
yeah, he's 13-0. Yeah, 13-0 with a no contest. But he won that fight too. He looked great. Yeah, that was really early in his career. Sean O'Malley and Andre Sukumtoth. So Sean O'Malley is a guy who they're really wanting to push. He's very creative. He's got an interesting offense. A lot of flashy kicks and things like that. And he's undefeated also, and he did really well on the was it a Tuesday Night Contender show. And he's got some charisma. Andrei Arlovsky and Stefan Struve is 2 heavyweights. Andre, is well past his prime. Struve is a classic underachiever in the sense that he's a guy who you think should be great. He's got a strong ground game, and he's 7 feet tall. He's got incredible reach, but he doesn't use it well. And he's just not as good a fighter as you think he should be. And then Ketlin Vieira and Kat Zingano is a fight where the winner probably should be the one who challenges Amanda Nunes and the Amanda Nunes-Raquel Pennington winner for the championship. Zingano does have a win over Nunes, but hasn't won a fight in several years because she's only fought, I think, once with what's her name, Juliana Pena, and then their fight before that was Ronda Rousey, I think, and then Vieira's undefeated, has looked good in her fights. Mackenzie Dern debuting, who is highly touted jiu-jitsu star, who the belief is very marketable. undefeated as well. She'll be on the main event on the FS1 prelims. Mike Pyle in his retirement fight at 42 against Zach Otto. Brian Caraway's back. John Dodson, Pedro Munoz fight that was supposed to be on one of the shows recently. Except Munoz missed weight and everything. There's a Hector Lombard, CB Dalloway fight. So the thing, so the show on Saturday, the Jeremy Stevens and Josh Emmett show. So it did a little bit over 2 million viewers. What's this number? 2 million, and I think it was just over 2. Let me get the number right here. I don't. It's 2,731,000 for the main event. The fight itself, hold on.
You can get the general number.
Yeah. Why can't I find this number? Anyway, it was just over 2 million. But I think the key to this is they were preempted in San Francisco. I mean, the basic thing that I was curious about was more as much as the fact that it didn't do the all-time record low that I expected it would do, is in the San Francisco market, my market, this fight was not available for the most part. There were some cable stations, cable systems that did carry it on KTVU Plus, which is a secondary channel, but most people don't know it. It's not like listed anywhere. And most people that would have watched that would have normally watched would have felt that they would have had no way to get it, and most of them would have had no way to get it. If you had Dish or DirecTV, you would have no way to get it. But so the whole thing is that basically what happened was that all of these people, it would have probably done 35 to 45,000 viewers in the Bay Area if it was on television. So how many of those, my big question was, how many of those 35 to 45,000 viewers are going to watch it streaming? Because that was their only avenue to get it. And the answer was like none. It was up, the streaming numbers were up like 383 viewers, I believe it was. It was just under 400 viewers that was up from the last show, which was a very low rated show. So, I mean, that's probably just a natural thing. Essentially, what this tells you is that most UFC fans that watch on television, I mean, when I say most, I'm talking 99% or more, but roughly in this case, it was right about 99%. 99% of and maybe more, because again, some of the increase would have been just because there was more interest in the show than the last one. If it was on television and you could not watch it on television and you could stream it, would instead not watch it. That statistic just blew my frickin' mind. I expected record streaming numbers from the Bay Area. Nothing of the case. And again, you can stream on television. How difficult is it? Not at all, right? I mean, most people, I don't know what percentage of people have streaming capabilities on TV, but I'm figuring anyone who bought a TV in the last several years would have that, right? They just don't do it. I don't have an answer as to why at all. I'm absolutely baffled. And the prelims, where you had both the San Francisco market, San Francisco market's a big market. We're talking probably over 7, so the metro area is 7 million people, but KTVU reaches out of that market because it's the Fox affiliate for a lot of Northern California. So, I mean, we're talking about more than 7 million people. And then the Fox affiliate in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, that's like that covers like 6 million people. And they did cover the main card, but they didn't cover the prelims. And, the prelims streaming was roughly the same. There's about 11,000 streaming viewers on an average minute for the prelims and about the same for the main card. Actually, slightly less for the main card than the prelims, believe it or not. And it makes absolutely no sense. So somebody else can try to explain it, because I just know the numbers, and I know the numbers didn't say anything that made any sense. So, I don't know. You got any answers for that one?
Not really. I mean, maybe it was preempted here too, which was interesting. I mean, you keep mentioning the Bay Area, but you couldn't see the first match, so you told me to watch it. It was also preempted here.
Oh, no, that's only one match. No, that wasn't preempted. That's because the basketball game went long. That's different.
I see. So you had the whole thing preempted.
Yeah. No, the only match that you would have missed would have been the first match of the prelims.
Yes.
Yeah, no. In the Bay Area, you could see none of it.
I see. Okay.
It was on at KTVU Plus, but that's like this, station that again.
Maybe everyone in the Bay Area was just watching the game. That's why they didn't stream.
What, the Warriors game?
Sure.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, the Warriors game is big. Yeah, but still, you're still going to have 35,000 people.
Apparently, you won't.
Well, they would have watched on TV. Yeah, they would have.
Well, I mean, that would have on TV, but they didn't care enough to stream it. They were watching the game.
Or they just probably looked at the TV guide. Oh, it's not playing here? All right. And just didn't even think about any. Okay, we're just going to miss it. Even though they tell you over and over again you can watch it streaming, it's like nobody. I don't have an answer as to why. I just know that the streaming number was an amazing statistic. I don't know. Again, when you see these numbers, because again, the one good thing about Fox when it comes to ratings is that because they have their streaming service, and two of them actually, it's not just Fox Sports Go is the one they usually promote on their own broadcast, but they also have Fox Now. I mean, you get the real number, and because they're TV people, they give you like a real number, not a bogus fake number like we get from everybody else. And like the whole idea of, I mean, it shouldn't make a difference. I mean, again, I think of I have a TV where you can get all this stuff. It's not like I can't watch it on my TV. I'm forced to watch it on my computer. But people don't, and I'm sure there's people who do, and people who do think everyone does, but the reality is they don't, and it's not even close. Like if it was like 30% of the viewers would switch, I go like, okay, it's 30%, and in time it's going to be, every year it's going to get more and more. But when it's 1% in 2018, this whole thing about television dying, man, that is like the most overrated story in the world, because it isn't close. I mean, I don't care what it's not even close. I mean, is it going down? Yeah, sure. But this streaming, it's like, these numbers are. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, a whole bunch of people are going to hate that, but that's what the numbers are. And we'll see when the streaming numbers are grow and grow and grow, and the TV numbers fall and fall and fall, and we will see this with Fox because of the way they do it. We're going to see the trends. The trend is a long, long way away. I'm sure that in time it will catch up, but like I said, it is so far. It is so much farther away than I even dreamed in my wildest dream. So there you go.
All right, the big story of the last couple of days in wrestling is I've gotten 9 million emails. No.
Brock?
This John Cena match.
John Cena's wrestling Undertaker.
Yes.
That's
all I know is way, way, way more people were texting and emailing today about that than about this Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar deal.
Okay, so yeah, no, John Cena's wrestling unless Undertaker gets hurt. But I mean, the interview on Monday was the whole situation with the interview on Monday is because they wanted to take you off the scent of John Cena and Undertaker. I mean, look at that. They mentioned that match. The place went crazy. You're not about to do that if you're not delivering the match. That's Vince McMahon. You're not going to do that. But I mean, the whole thing is that if you said, I think that they felt that too many people knew it, so he had to say, I'm not doing it, because John Cena is going to main event the next pay-per-view, and if he doesn't win that six-way and win the championship, he still has no way to get to WrestleMania. And that's the storyline that they're doing, and if people think that he's wrestling Undertaker, it kills that storyline. So that's the story on that. Rey Mysterio does not have a deal there. He may end up with a deal there. I expect there's a good chance that he will. I mean, that's a different story. They have not met yet on the deal. There is a basic understanding that there will be, whether it's an in-person meeting or a phone meeting between Triple H and Rey, that it will happen, and probably relatively soon, but it hasn't happened yet. And at that time they'll have to work something out, because this is not like a rubber stamp thing where it's got to be something that satisfies both sides. He's not looking to go back and work a full-time schedule. If they're willing to use him on a part-time basis and pay him a lot of money, of course he'll go. I should say enforce. I mean, it depends on a lot of different things. But I mean, I think there's a good chance that he will. Are they willing to do that? I think that they are a lot more willing now than they were a couple of years ago, especially after the reaction that he got at the Royal Rumble. So, again, I don't want to give odds on him coming back, but I do think that it's certainly far, far higher than it was even a couple of months ago. But I mean, the thing is he gets really good money for his WWE, that is independent matches. I mean, he's the highest paid guy on the independent scene as far as a per match basis goes, and it gives him the freedom to wrestle when he wants and not wrestle when he wants, and there's a lot to that. I think one of his big things he wants to do is get his son. His son's trained to be a pro wrestler. I think he's like 19 years old, and and perhaps being in WWE, because they are good with legacy and things like that, that by being Rey's son, it might get him into the Performance Center. But a lot of people, that are wrestlers, and we've seen it, whether it's Dave Finlay's son or many others, where you would think that you'd want to send them to the Performance Center, they want to send them to somewhere else, whether it's, Japan or whatever, because of the feeling that, there's a lot of talk right now with the Performance Center. There's so many people there, and there's the feeling that, you're not getting enough one-on-one, that you could get somewhere else, I suppose. So there is that. So I don't, there's a lot of factors in play, but the John Cena Rey Mysterio match, it's that's not in the cards right now. He doesn't know anything about it. He hasn't been contacted for it, and he doesn't have a deal right now.
All right, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar.
They're wrestling in the main event at WrestleMania unless Roman Reigns isn't, which is, by the way, the Braun Strowman thing that we speculate on Monday, that is the case. Braun Strowman, the reason they took Braun Strowman out of the Miz match is because they felt it was very important to have a backup for, more Roman Reigns than Brock.
So is the idea that he'll just largely have a nothing match on the cards, and if he ends up not replacing Roman Reigns, he'll just smash somebody at the show? Because you don't want to put him in like a important program, and then if something happens, you got to move him out of that program into the other program.
Right. Well, the whole thing is they're shuffling things because they don't want to have to shuffle around the whole card. So what they're going to do is create a new card. So instead of Miz against Strowman and then having to pull that and then start from scratch, they're going with Miz and Miz, Finn Balor, and Seth Rollins in the three-way. And Strowman, I guess he could work with Elias. I guess if Samoa Joe's ready, he could work with Samoa Joe. If they decree, they could make that Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns a three-way. I mean, they could do that as well, and perhaps they should. I mean, Strowman is the most over guy. My God, it's so weird to me watching the way that match was booked on Sunday, because it's like when that match was over, it's like the idea of the match should be, man, I want to see Roman Reigns go against Brock Lesnar. That's the match. It's the main event at WrestleMania, and that is the match I want to see. And when that show was over, I don't think there was a person alive who had that reaction. The reaction was, oh, how come Braun Strowman's not in the main event? He's the biggest star. And they booked him to be the biggest star. It's like, if they booked it and the people didn't react, that's one thing. But they booked it for Braun Strowman to be the biggest star. They were so intent on protecting Braun Strowman that Roman Reigns won the match, but he didn't go get over, and he wasn't booked to get over. And if he's in the main event and it's a singles match, and this is the main event at WrestleMania, I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. So that's that issue. I don't sense that there's any issue with Lesnar. He's going to be at TV in 2 weeks, most likely. The idea, what happened was, this was a not last minute, but late change in the script. Somebody, whoever this may be, I don't know who it is, I can speculate, but somebody came up with this idea. The mentality behind all of this is Brock Lesnar is probably leaving. And even if he's not, the idea has been for years that Roman Reigns is going to be the big star, and he's going to beat Brock Lesnar, and he's going to win that match decisively at WrestleMania that he was supposed to win 3 years ago. And they want him cheered, and that hasn't worked out. So the idea is to portray Brock Lesnar, to go with the attack of how are we going to get this guy cheered, and the idea is to portray Brock Lesnar as a guy who doesn't care about wrestling, doesn't care about the wrestlers, has no respect for anyone, he has no respect for you fans. He's just in it for the money. He's not like everyone else who's in it because it's their religion, and because we all love it, and money has nothing to do with it, unless you're Vince, of course. He's, everyone's in it because they want their WrestleMania moment, and Brock does not care about things like WrestleMania moments and all these other things. So we should all hate him for that. And because of that, and again, that is a tack that may work. If you remember, what was it, 14 years ago at WrestleMania, right? Was it 2004? It was 2005.
Yeah, I was just talking about this the other day. They run the risk of having this happen again.
Well, no. Well, you mean both booed? But Roman's staying.
Well, he is staying, but he's hated. So you're gonna create a situation where the fans hate one guy for leaving, they hate the other guy for existing, and they could both get booed completely out of the building.
I don't think that's going to happen, but you're right. I think that you can't discount that as a possibility.
I mean, you mentioned on Monday they cheered him during that promo, and he came out 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour later for that dark match and got booed.
Yeah, and I think next week in Milwaukee, I bet he gets booed. And when they're in Detroit, I bet he gets booed. But maybe in their minds, they think that we got 6 weeks of this coming up, that we can just hammer this point home. But, I mean, they thought that 3 years ago. Remember, they did all those things to put him over Lesnar.
I have been watching for 3 years as they try every single solitary thing, a lot of which are actually really, really clever, and it never works.
Well, sometimes it works for like minutes.
Sure.
But it never works for the next week.
Never. Yeah. So this is a big risk. This will have to be the first time it works.
Yeah. I'm not giving them good odds for that one at all. But that is the mentality. Just so if you want to know why this is happening, they couldn't, that was they were trying to come up with a reason to get people to boo Brock Lesnar. And actually, as a reason, this is pretty good. He no-showed a show. He's the bad guy who's holding up the company, and he's thinking of leaving the UFC, and he didn't even come to our pay-per-view, even though he was in the city that our pay-per-view was in. And that's the story. So that's the story they're playing, and there you go. So that's what's happening.
All right, Smackdown.
So John Cena came in and he beat AJ Styles. I didn't think the match turned out to be pretty good. The first part of the match was terrible. Like the first, John. It's like when John Cena does like back and forth near falls, and those matches always seem to get over right now. So do them. That's what seems to work. So that's what they do. But the beginning when he's doing like the building phase, God, he was terrible. And then some of the AJ Styles, his stuff was so off. And for like the first 4 minutes, after the first commercial break, it got a lot better. But I'm watching the first couple minutes of this, and it's like, I don't know if it's rust. I don't know if it's injuries. I'm sure injuries have a lot to do with it. And John,
probably a little bit of both. I mean, it was the same thing in that Seth Rollins match. I mean, the first 15 minutes of that match were horrendous, and then it got good.
It was actually 22 minutes.
Well, I watched
it again. But people love. At the end, people still like the match. I mean, because you got stars and everything, and again, you did all the near falls and the kickouts and all that. John Cena beat him, so it was good. He's added to the the match to make it a 6-way. They're going pretty hard with this Shane McMahon, Daniel Bryan thing. I'm wondering, like, it's
They were. This show was so wacky.
Well, I mean, it's like
Bryan just wanted to go home.
He wanted to go home.
Go to the airport early for that long flight.
Yeah, I did love the line that Shane McMahon said to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn that Daniel Bryan left, so you guys might as well leave soon because Brie doesn't like it when you're late for dinner. I thought that was really quite clever.
Chomping on popcorn all night.
That was
like, who's supposed to be the babyface and heel here? Because like it's almost like they're pushing Bryan as the heel, but like Shane's chomping this popcorn. He's so cocky. It's just I cannot figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, that's kind of... Well, I mean, Shane's supposed to be the babyface, without a doubt, because Bryan's the one who's supposed to be siding with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I'm wondering if they do something like Shane against... they've already done Shane and Kevin Owens already this year. So I wonder if they do Shane against Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. Because it seems like there's, with some stipulation involving Daniel Bryan.
Huh. What stipulation would that be?
I have no idea.
He's fired as GM if he...
Yeah, but I don't think they want to fire him as GM because I think that let's face it, ever since they started doing this Shane McMahon, Daniel Bryan stuff, the ratings have gone up. So, and I think that people are, I think they're into it. I think people don't realize, it's not leading to a match, although it could. I mean, look, the guy could get cleared. It is not, just so everyone knows, it is far from out of the realm of possibility that he gets cleared. As we've said over and over, there are many doctors who feel that he is fine and he should be able to wrestle. And there's the one doctor that counts has not said that. If he can be convinced, the guy will be back. It's not impossible. As far as like, it's just that's the deal. And if it is, I don't know that it could happen in time for Mania, and it's certainly not on the cards right now, but they still could make sense out of this for, say, SummerSlam or something like that. But who knows? That's out of the booking team's hands. That's a medical issue. I'm trying to think what other stuff was there. The women's stuff. I don't know. Didn't think that Naomi Ruby Riott match didn't do much for me. Wasn't just I don't know that the Baron Corbin match with Sami Zayn was just kind of there. The 205 Live match. So the okay, because this was Los Angeles. From what I understand, they had about 9,000 people for the show, which is real good for a Tuesday night show right now. But LA's a big market. But they had more people leaving during that TJP match with Cedric Alexander, and that was like a really, like, if you're just looking at a wrestling match with two guys where you have mat work and transitions and submissions and high flying and the moves are executed and the story is good and all that, that was a great match. But because of when it aired and because it's 205 Live and the fact that people didn't react and it went really long, it was just like people were just leaving in droves during that match. So Cedric Alexander won with a lumbar check. And then the other 205 Live match was Roderick Strong beating Kalisto. I don't know if that's an upset or not. Maybe it is. And that was really good too. The people did get in. They weren't into it that much, but there was a spot where they went through where they did a table spot. And then people, like, after the table spot, are chanting 205, 205, which I've never heard before, although it was really only the first two rows that were doing it.
I did see that, actually. I was astonished. I didn't know if it was new or what, but they were chanting 205.
Yeah, but it wasn't that many. If you looked at it, it was very few people, and they were all in the first two rows. And I wonder if, again, whenever you do a table spot, it's kind of like, that's like the thing, I guess. But I mean, they had a really good match, though. Roderick Strong matches are almost always good anyway, and Kalisto's a good wrestler, so that was good. The mixed match thing was a lot of comedy it was I felt it was kind of entertaining. So it was Miz and Asuka against Sasha Banks and Finn Balor, and the people had no interest. I don't say no. They didn't have a lot of interest in Miz and Finn Balor. When Asuka and Sasha Banks were in, they were a lot more into it. But they did do this story. The storyline was that Miz thinks that they have a winning streak, which I guess as a team they do have a one-match winning streak. So Miz is talking about our winning streak, and Asuka's going to him and goes, "You don't have a winning streak. It's my streak. You just lost last night to Finn Balor." So Miz is in there, and Finn Balor keeps getting these 2 counts, and I guess that Asuka's streak is on the line in these matches.
That's the story.
That's the story. So Asuka is like freaking out that this freaking bumbling partner of hers who's about to ruin her streak. But in the end, in fact, Miz did pin Finn Balor and they won. So her streak is still alive and for another until they, go again. So I don't know. This Asuka streak has turned into like comedy, and I don't know if that's like what you really want this winning streak of 2 years to turn into, but it did.
Well, it's comedy on Mixed Match Challenge, which is all about comedy.
Right, and then on the main show, it's just a fluke because she just got destroyed by Nia Jax. So it's like she has a streak, but she lucked through that last match that she didn't even deserve to win. And she's she's not that tough because she wasn't even competitive with Nia Jax except for the banana peel win. And those things don't get you over. So, as far as the value of the streak, they've to me, I mean, that's not how you do a streak. That's all. I mean, if you want to do it, I mean, it's the streak. They're doing the streak now in the way that it doesn't work. So,
well, at least she hasn't lost. It's not like this Charlotte streak where she kept losing and they just changed the rules of the streak until it totally didn't matter and then just randomly ended it. That sucked.
Yeah, but she at least didn't get, when she did her pay-per-view streak, she never got destroyed on pay-per-view. I mean, she had back and forth matches, but they were always competitive matches. This was someone who got destroyed and got beat up after the match. I mean, it was like the most one-sided thing. It was like, so I don't think that streak, I mean, I don't think people take the streak. And plus, Charlotte was a lot more over when she had her streak than Asuka is now on the main roster. I mean, Asuka's not over. So, I mean, not over big. She's over medium, I suppose, at best. I mean, it's not like in NXT when she was over like freaking crazy. So it's there's a streak, but I don't think it's been that effective. And we'll see. And I guess we'll just have to wait. So my gut is that the whatever they're going to do with the women's title matches, I guess they can't announce it until after the Charlotte Ruby Riott match on March 11th. So I think that like this year, one of the things with WrestleMania when they start with the direction after Royal Rumble is these pay-per-views between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. It's almost like they're not really a good idea for when it comes to storytelling because you've got to like build those pay-per-views, but they keep you from actually building WrestleMania. And they in the case of like with Cena, because they wanted Cena in this pay-per-view, it means that they can't announce Cena's match until March the 12th, which, I mean, you still have March the 12th, 1926. So you still do have four weeks of television to do it. So I guess that is enough. That really is enough. But it feels like they're that like, God, we're not even getting, they're wasting so much time not announcing the match. But I mean, the reality is also that next year we're only going to have one show like this rather than two. So we'll just have like a show probably in February and they'll take all of March off. So it'll be the mistake of this year. If it is a mistake, will be corrected next year anyway. So there you go.
Mark Hitchcock.
Yeah. Mark Hitchcock, who worked for Highspots and he produced a lot of their DVDs, and he was a big fan. He went to matches all over the world. Was a guy from PWG, one of the big fans there. I guess he passed away yesterday, and I don't really know more. I just heard about it, just like a couple hours ago. So I don't really have more details. I just saw that. So very, very, very sorry to hear that. I don't know, like, they said that if you got a Highspots DVD, that he probably produced it, and I was in 2 Highspots DVDs. I think maybe well, actually more than 2. I mean, two specifically built around me, but also a couple of others. You know, like the Brody DVD, which, by the way, that freaking Brody DVD is so awesome. I mean, so if he produced that, what a great job. That is, you know, one of my favorite DVDs of the last several years. It was it's really good. I just highly recommend it, especially like the editing and everything like that. You know, my son's a big movie buff, and he's very high standards. He's like one of these guys who will go to a movie, and if it's not like a technically good movie, even if it's fun, I mean, he'll enjoy it, but he knows the difference, so to speak, you know, because he's really into the, and he thought that DVD was just great. So there you go.
Let's jump into the mailbag.
Well, real quick, want to mention a few ratings things too. So we mentioned the UFC rating. So the Raw rating, the rating itself was like up 1% from last week, but the viewers were down 3%. So it was essentially the same, but it was the day after a pay-per-view, and this was the Ronda Rousey debut. So the key is that I really, you know, again, it was only known for a day, but it was known for a day, that it does not look like, at least on day one, that Ronda Rousey made a substantial difference, and definitely no difference in increased women viewers. Because that, if anything, it went in the other direction. It was more teenage boys, you know, up than I think pretty much any other demo. But even then, I can't say that, because they dropped too. The third hour dropped in every demo. I mean, it always does every week, and it's, you know, and it also was Ronda, Triple H, Stephanie. You know, I mean, and Stephanie was very, very clear she was going to be, whatever it was. The reality is they didn't. The people who were there in hour one were told Ronda Rousey was going to be there. They were told Stephanie was going to be there. They were told that she was going to confront Kurt and Ronda, and a large percentage of them, a very large percentage, did not stay to see hour 3. So there was that. The Smackdown, which I'm presuming is because of John Cena, did its second best number of the year. Real good number. Cena and AJ main event. You know, that's a big time main event. And the match went well over 20 minutes. I think it went 21 and a half minutes, plus the intros and everything. It was like the last 30 minutes of the show. And, you know, a long match will build the rating more. And, you know, that's the one thing. I mean, in the 80s, a lot of the ratings were you know, built on interviews and not long matches. I mean, like, if you had long matches with 2 main eventers, which were rare in that time, yes, it would do well. But generally speaking, the biggest stuff on a lot of those shows would be the interviews with the stars were bigger than the matches. That is not the case now, which probably has to do with the fact that interviews mostly suck now, you know, more often than not. I think it's a problem. But if you look at, like, you know, this week's show didn't do as good as last week's show. Last week's show was built around, you know, that wrestling match with just match. I mean, it's long. I mean, it dropped in the third hour when they started doing it, but when they did that long 107-minute match with no interviews except for those little insets, but the match was always going on, they kept their audience in hour 2, which they, at a level they usually don't. The total audience was way higher than usual. I mean, that's the same thing with UFC. I mean, UFC, if you look at the minute by minute of UFC or the quarters, I mean, it's when fights are going on, the number goes way up. When fights are not going on, when they do the video packages between fights or they go to the studio, the number goes down. And it's the same thing here. So whatever. I mean, it's like that doesn't mean it's always going to be like that, but that is what it is in 2018. That this show, you know, and again, the last thing is that they were built into an interview segment, not a match. So right now, matches are bigger than interviews.
Alrighty, this person here says, what is the update on the Punk Cabana Amon lawsuit on his podcast?
I actually got it. It's the issue kind of like talks. There's really nothing. I mean, there's really no update. I mean, you know, I know what Colt Cabana said, but I've checked that out, and it's just right now it looks like it's going to go to trial, which just shocks the hell out of me. I thought it'd be settled for sure.
This Person says, has there been any WWE interest in Eli Drake since his contract with Impact is coming up soon?
I don't know. I haven't heard. He was there before. He's a good talker. I don't know where he fits in though. They have so many guys. I don't think that I think Ethan Carter III, because he had the exposure on, for years there when they were actually getting viewers when he first got there, that I think that when he arrived there was kind of interest in him, and he's a really good talker. Drake's a good talker, but he hasn't been viewed by as many people, and for the most part, NXT is more about being able to have good matches. So I don't know that. I don't if I'm running NXT, I don't know about Eli Drake. I don't know that he fits in. I mean, I really love his promos, so there is something there, but I don't think it's again. I don't know what they think on it. I haven't heard his name mentioned at all. They're stockpiling a lot of guys, but I wouldn't be. I don't know. If it was me, it's not a high. It wouldn't be a high priority compared to a lot of other guys.
This person here says, what was the story in regards to Rick Rude's departure from the WWF in September 1990 after he had just begun his feud with the Big Boss Man?
We've talked about this before. Okay, so he tore his triceps, and that's why he originally wasn't there. Is he tore his triceps, and then he had a big fight with Vince, because in those days they false advertised like crazy. So they were advertising Rick Rude against the Big Boss Man and all these house shows, and it was main event on like the shows. So Rick Rude wasn't there, and he wasn't getting paid because he wasn't there. I mean, he was getting paid whatever, they didn't have guaranteed deals back in 1990. I mean, Hogan did, but the rest of them didn't. But so whatever it was that he was getting paid wasn't much. And his thing was, they're using my name. You're using my name to draw big houses, and it's my name, Big Boss Man against Rick Rude. So I should be getting main event money because you're making the money from my main event, even though I'm not wrestling in it because I'm hurt. And the real thing is they shouldn't have advertised it in the first place. If they were truthful to their customers, we wouldn't have this issue. But since they weren't, he felt that he should get paid for the main events because they were using his name. And I don't think he was wrong. And Rick Rude was, a certain type of guy. Not many guys were like him. He had a lot of Brody in him, that if it didn't right, he would leave. So he left. And he went to WCW because, and he ended up hating WCW after a couple of years, and he had his run-ins with Bill Watts over similar things. When he got hurt under Bill Watts and all that. And Bill Watts wanted to cut his pay, and he felt he got hurt in their ring, and he shouldn't have his pay cut. Which, if you think logically, if you get hurt working for a wrestling company, they shouldn't cut your pay. But back then they did. So anyway, the gist of that, the reason he left WWE was because him and Vince had a fight over money, over that issue, and unlike most others, he was willing to leave. And he had a lot of confidence in his ability, and he knew he could go somewhere else. He knew he was good. A lot of guys are afraid, they think that if I go somewhere else, I got a push. The fact is, he went to WCW, and I think he had the best years of his career in WCW. I think he was better in WCW than he was in WWF, although he was quite good in WWF too. So, but I think he was a better worker until he got hurt. Once he broke his back in the with the match in I think he broke his neck, and then he broke his back. Because he came back, he was awesome, and then he got hurt the one year, and then he just wasn't that good after that, and then he broke his back in the Fukuoka Dome match with Sting, and I think that was pretty much the end of his career at that point. He came back with the bodyguard role and things like that, but I don't think he wrestled much after that, if he wrestled at all.
This person here says, will Jon Jones' testimony before the CSAC be held against him as evidence when he has his hearing with USADA?
Yes. I think so.
This person says, could you please tell the story of the Pillman-Sullivan respect match from Super Brawl?
In what sense?
He says, did all of that go exactly as planned, or was there a lot more to it?
It went as planned. I think the thing that they screwed up on was...
It was not a shoot.
Nothing was nothing. Well, no, it wasn't a shoot. I mean, all of that stuff was all worked out. The swerve was that Brian, while working with Kevin Sullivan and Eric Bischoff, was actually working Kevin Sullivan and Eric Bischoff, which, again, with Eric, I can't tell you with Eric because I never talked to him about it. But with Kevin, I can tell you that Kevin did know. He wasn't that stupid. He did figure it out because and all that. But, you know, I mean, I still can't get over that to this day, the story that, you know, and he told me he was going to do it, and he did it, that Brian Pillman told them, you know, Brian got himself hot by doing this loose cannon angle. He had a contract with WCW, and the gimmick was that they were going to fire him as a work, and he was going to go to ECW because everyone knew that ECW hated WCW. So if he went to ECW, that would prove that he was fired. And that was the gimmick, is that they wanted to convince everyone that he was fired. So he said that he told them that, like, you have to send me release papers, like real, so we can fool the people in the office, because you know how this office is. The office, they'll tell everyone that, in fact, I'm still being paid here and that I'm still under contract. So unless you release me, they're going to think, you know, it's going to get out that I'm not really fired. So they sent him, like, real release papers. So they started negotiating with Vince, and he ended up with Vince. You know, it's not as simple as that. There was a lot of other things that happened, but he got real release papers, and he told me he was going to do that, and it's like, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way they're going to send you real release papers, and they did. So that was one of the more fascinating stories.
This person here says, was the big blue cage the WWF used in the 80s and early 90s built that way so Hogan and the Giants could that he fought could climb it easier?
I think so, yeah.
This person says, is the old pro wrestling custom of shaking everyone's hand backstage at every wrestling event still prevalent in all of the major companies today, or is it being phased out?
I don't know, Brian, you tell me.
Should ask Tom, actually. I'll ask Tom on Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. There are guys who do the light handshake with me, and there are guys who don't. But it's not like before where everyone did. So
I don't think you're talking about the light handshake, just the idea that when you go in the locker room, you shake every single person's hand.
Oh, I think that's still prevalent. I mean, every time I always, that's what I see. Yeah, I always see. Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know, but I think so. You know.
Alrighty, this person says, what's the backstory behind David Sammartino's phantom submission to Ron Shaw in a match in 1985 at the Philadelphia Spectrum?
Oh, God, I remember that. I think that he was in trouble, and they wanted him to lose to Ron Shaw. And, you know, normally he wouldn't lose to Ron Shaw because Ron Shaw was kind of like a job guy, and David was a little bit ahead of that. But I don't remember, like, everything about that. But yeah, it was I remember seeing that match. It was a really weird ending.
This person here says, what does it mean that Brock's contract ends shortly after WrestleMania, but WWE has rights until August?
There's different deals. There's two different deals. There's a wrestling contract, and I think there's a merchandising contract, maybe. But his wrestling contract ends after WrestleMania. But they can, you know, he may work after that. But I know that when he was going to fight Jon Jones before this whole mess took place, that, you know, the idea was the match would be after August so that there would be no issues with WWE, you know, in the sense of there'd be no question, where there would be question if he could do it or not, like in May or June or July.
This person here says, Dave recently talked about the DEA coming to a WWF event in the 90s. I think it was December 91, with Hogan and Flair main eventing. The Legion of Doom wrestled in Zubaz because, quote, their luggage was lost, was the excuse I remember the ring announcer saying. Who was the DEA after, and any other times this would have happened?
It's the only time I've ever heard of it happening, and they were after Kerry Von Erich. I guess they got tipped that, about Kerry Von Erich. But they searched. I think they searched everyone. They didn't find anything because somebody found out who had connections in that city and told people in WWE, and the word got out. Don't bring anything, because a lot of guys would have. It's possible some guys would have. Whether it might have been just pot, but still, it could have been a really horrible situation for WWE at that time. But in fact, it wasn't. It was a story. It was a news story, but it wasn't. Nobody had anything on them. I mean, if a lot of guys had stuff, if they weren't tipped off, and a lot of guys had stuff on them, at that point in time, given everything that was going on in the world, it could have been a real bad situation for WWE.
This person says, how serious is the spinal issue affecting Sheamus, and why has WWE cleared him to wrestle?
He's got spinal stenosis, but a lot of guys have that. It's not a good thing to have, and it will affect him most likely as he gets older in not so great ways. But he's working hard, and I don't think that I don't sense when you look at him physically, you don't sense that he's got like weakness and that he can't lift weights anymore or things like that. So it's he's got. So it doesn't look like it's affecting him too much right now. He's looking like he can work pretty well and everything like that. But it is something that, in the long run, it's not a good thing to have. But I mean, like Austin has it, and and Edge has it, and they live normal lives, but they don't wrestle anymore. It probably will shorten his career.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. The new Observer's up on the front page right now. You can head up there and check it out. Dave will be up on Observer Live tomorrow talking more about that. We've got back issues up from Monday, tons of radio shows, Filthy Tom show today, all sorts of great stuff. And I left my wallet in Greg Palaco with you, Dave.
Yeah, that was a fun show.
That's right. Second time you've been on talking sports.
Yeah, I had a really good time on that show. That was really fun.
So if you want to check that one out, you can do that as well. And that is it. We'll talk to you again after a while.